Welcome back to another episode of Vikings Happy Hour. We're treating this week as a little shorter show, but a bye-week check-in on our 5-1 Minnesota Vikings. So go grab your Lake Monster beer and tune in for a fun show.
Welcome to Vikings Happy Hour, where we mix our favorite beverage and talk of your Minnesota Vikings. Skol!
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Vikings Happy Hour. I am your host, Matt Anderson, joined alongside me this evening, Ryan Ortega, Miles Gorham, and producer Dave. I'm trying to get my mind in the right sport right now as the Wolves season opener is on the screen behind me. But we have a lot to talk about that's fun for the Vikings too. So they're fresh off a win in Miami, 5-1. I don't think anybody in their right mind would have predicted this going into the season. Maybe 4-2, 3-3, you name it. But 5-1, I don't know. I'd have been hard pressed to find a person that says that. What are your thoughts, guys, on last week's game?
A little disappointing. I mean, it's a win, so like it's great, we won, and
You're
it's like how
disappointed?
again, I'm never disappointed for a win, but it's a disappointing how we got the win. I think you're going against a third string quarterback to start the game, and then you get Teddy back in there who had limited reps all throughout the week, and you don't again just same thing I said about last week when we played the Chicago, and the week before that when we played I don't know if it was the week before that, but when we played the Lions, and we're not putting teams away, especially these lower level like the Bears. We should have put away. You should beat the Dolphins handedly if they don't have Tua playing right now. Granted, I shouldn't. The rest of their team's solid, right? You have Tyreek Hill, he's going to make plays. You have Jalen Waddle, he's going to make plays.
Yeah.
No matter who the quarterback is, and they have a pretty decent defense. But you just hope that we get out to a lead, we get a big lead, we hold the big lead, and it just isn't happening in these games. But again, a win's a win, and these are games that we traditionally have lost in the past, and so I'm happy to see us continuing to pull out these close nail biters.
Coming off of last season, though, where it was so hard to fetch a win, for me, it's hard to call these wins disappointing because maybe they're not doing it as like convincingly as you would hope, and I can understand that aspect of it. But they're still winning against teams they should win against, right? Like, I think it'd
Yeah.
be more concerning and more disappointing if we were losing these games. So, Miles, any thought there? Are you disappointed?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'm not like disappointed. I think my issue is just there are concerns, like things to be concerned about moving forward from what we've seen heading into the bye. Again, being 5-1 helps cover up those issues because you're 5-1. You've been able to find ways to deal with the shortcomings and deal with the things that haven't gone well, and you've
Mm-hmm.
overcome them. My concern is it's more like I said, was it last week? I'm not as concerned about the defense just because I didn't have expectations for the defense. Um,
Yeah.
I I'm more concerned about the offense and just like the lack of consistency within the offense, and just not being able to see them like truly unlock. We since like basically week one, we haven't really seen this offense go off. Like yeah, they've done some good things like here and there, but the
Mm-hmm.
consistency just hasn't been there. So that's my only like I guess true concern. And I think with a guy like Kevin O'Connell and then still having the weapons and like the quarterback that we have, we should still be okay moving forward. And you hope that they can fix some of those issues. I think there's some disconnect between this is just me speculating disconnect
Yeah.
between Kirk and what Kirk's skill set is and what Kevin O'Connell's trying to run. And that's why I think we've seen a lot more of Kirk playing from under center and more of Kirk running more play action in the last couple of weeks, just because that we know that's what Kirk's skill set is. That's what Kirk's really good at, and I think they're trying to get him. I think O'Connell's trying to get him going in those facets of the game because he knows that that's where he's good at. And so we've talked offline in chats and stuff about Adam Thielen and KJ Osborne, and like the one thing that this team is now missing, like we have Justin Jefferson, right? This team and Adam Thielen is still good, but Adam Thielen obviously doesn't have the vertical ability that he had previously in his career. And KJ Osborne, that's not his skill set, and that's also not how he's being utilized. This team is missing their Stephon Diggs, Adam Thielen duo, right? Like and the Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson duo, of 2020 and part of 2021. And so this team doesn't have that number 2 receiver that's really explosive, that's gonna scare teams vertically, or even just scare teams as a whole. Like Jamar Chase and T. Higgins is a good example of like 2 guys that can pair well with each other and help take away or help keep defenses honest. And again, it's nothing against Thielen and KJ. I think those guys are still really good. We just don't have that true number, like high level number 2 anymore that we had for so long in Adam Thielen. I think
like
that's
a
just
1A, 1B.
Yeah.
Like we were used to
exactly.
1A, 1B, and now it's truly a 1, 2, 3 or a 1, 2A, 2B, right? Like
right. Yeah, exactly.
And a lot of these teams are having that 1A, 1B, which would be nice to have. And I'm gonna backtrack here real quick on my comments earlier. Yeah, to Miles' point, disappointing is probably not the right terminology I should use, because I did forget that we did close that game out. Like we had the lead, they came back, and then we had a drive to milk it or to put the game away, and Dalvin Cook did go on for that long touchdown. So we did put that game away. So I guess I was a little encouraged to see that. But again, I would have liked to see a little larger lead or a little larger win differential versus just a one score game. So,
I think we're all in agreement on kind of how we feel about Sunday's game. But before we get to the bye week check-in and we talk about, grading kind of the Vikings units, we'll go through offense, special teams, defense, and kind of give them a grade and then see where they could probably improve. I do want to call out something separately from the Vikings. If you're here tonight in the chat, please provide us some comments and feedback on how you think the Vikings are doing through 6 weeks, and we'll try our best to incorporate those in our show. Additionally, a fun announcement here at Climb in the Pocket, and a new sponsor has been added to our shows. If you look up, I don't know if I'll point in the right direction. Of course I won't. If you look up in the right-hand corner, it would be the left-hand corner.
Dave always gets the best picks of us.
I know.
Post them on Twitter.
Yeah,
I do that on purpose.
If you look in the left-hand corner, it's our new sponsor, That's Badass Wood Art. It's our friend Luis. He makes incredible wood art over there in Newport, Minnesota. Custom pieces, Vikings pieces. You reach out to him on his website, which I have with me right here. It's that'sbadasswoodart.com. Reach out to him.
All one word.
All one word. And on one item, if you type in CT Pocket, you'll get 20% off. And that's only for one item, not your whole order, but for one item. But these pieces are great. I mean, Miles and I are already in conversations about trying to get some. I'm sure Ryan and Dave will as well. So head on over to there and
you're gonna see some pieces from us up on our walls here soon. So
yeah, well,
really
my wife
to partner with them.
My wife already looked at the website and she's like, "Hey, we can hang it right above here in the kitchen. It'll be perfect." I'm like, "All right, let's go."
I'm sitting here and I'm like, I'm gonna have to change my setup a little bit because I always kind of block behind me. But I could probably sneak it in right over there.
Oh yes, you could, over your shoulder.
So I'm excited. It's going to be a great partnership.
A skull saw artist, and he has found many different stains, and they're not called stains anymore. They're different. They're basically stains, color stains, and he makes art with it. He cuts the wood pieces, stains it, frames it up, and they're absolutely beautiful. If you look at his social media page, at all the stars, and I mean stars, from Hollywood to sports that have commented on his work. It's that good.
Yeah.
Well worth the investment.
You guys have got to go over, and remember, 20% off any one item using CT Pocket as the promo code. Now, back to the Vikings here. We kind of had this just as a quick little check-in, see how these units are doing. So let's start with the offense. Give a grade. Tell us something you've been impressed with, and then what could be improved. So let's start with the offense. And Ryan, I'm going to hand it to you first because I know your favorite person is leading this team still. That's Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, I mean, I don't.
Who, by the way,
like Kirk.
leading Aaron Rodgers in the MVP odds through 6 weeks.
I mean, Rodgers has looked really bad. So
he's just ahead of Rodgers in the MVP voting.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean,
yeah,
I don't think either of them should be in the MVP voting, but.
You're going to be hard pressed to find them beating, the likes of Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes at this point. So, no. So, go back to the question here. We're talking just offensive. We're starting on the offense grade of a specific unit on the offense, or the offense as a whole.
Whatever you want. Whatever you want.
Yeah, I'm gonna go into more of a specific, and actually, Dave, I may need a little help on from you on this, but is the offensive line because it is a position group that traditionally has been really, really rough for us, right? And over this year, I think we've seen some highs and some lows. More specifically, our right guard Ed Ingram, who we came into the season with a lot of hope, a lot of promise, second-round pick. Played really well in the preseason, still grading out very well in the run blocking categories, struggling significantly in the pass blocking categories. And Dave,
he's below where we want him to be. Yes, but he's a lot better than what we had.
Well. But what we've had has been like historically bad. Like Drew Samia, historically bad.
62 out of 62. Yes. He is mid-pack.
So, we've improved. Yes. But so it's great to see that, I think the fan base as a whole has actually been calm in this category, this subject for at least a little while now. And obviously you have some, you have some comments made about Ed Ingram and, should he be replaced at this point? It's like, absolutely not. No. He's a young guy who's continuing to learn, and he's going up against some really good players. But then how about Garrett Bradbury, who I, for one, was the biggest hater of Garrett Bradbury. I was ready to get rid of him 2 years ago.
I think a lot of fans were.
Yeah, let alone this year. And he's had a bit of a turnaround season. So kudos to coaching. I mean, it has to be coaching, right? Ezra Cleveland's continuing to play relatively well. Our outside, bookend tackles on Madden for me right now because I just picked it up yesterday. It was on sale right now. They're awful. Rashawn Gary got like 5 sacks on me this game, but in real life, they are playing absolutely phenomenal. So it's very encouraging to see that we have a left tackle of the future. We have a right tackle, that has been the past and present and future. I think that interior has improved significantly to the point where we're no longer concerned. Now we're worried about wide receiver 3 or wide receiver 2. We're worried about is Dalvin Cook cooked, right? Like we're talking about other topics outside of offensive line, which for me, it just is more exciting because talking about offensive line sucks. It's not fun. No offense, Dave.
But if you want to talk good things about offensive line, are you aware, depending on what stats you're looking at, whether it be ESPN win rates or PFF, 4 out of the 5 are in the top 10 in certain positions on those. You've got number 2 left tackle in the league, Christian Darrisaw, across the board. The dude's heading to the Pro Bowl if he keeps this up. You have Garrett Bradbury, believe it or not, is ranked, I think it's PFF, is ranked number 10, or no, it's even higher than that. I think it's 9, 7, 8, somewhere in there, center in the league. In run block win rate on ESPN, the rookie, Ed Ingram, is number 10. And then you get over on the right side Brian O'Neill is a top 5 right tackle, right? And top 5 when it comes to pass blocking win rates. And you say, well, that's 4 to 5. What about Ezra? Well, Ezra's just below that line, just below. And he is better on both run and pass for the most part over the season than any of them. And he has done outstanding. That is why having this line the way it is right now, and they're young. And as I've preached many times, it takes 3 years for an offensive lineman to get really, really good. You got Darrisaw's on his 2nd season. Ezra's on his 3rd, right? But second one at left guard. You have Bradbury coming into his 4th season, and you have Ed Ingram as a rookie. There is nothing but up that these guys are going, and we know how good Brian O'Neill is. It is so good not to have to worry about them play after play after play after play. Yeah, they may make a mistake. Ezra may get beat. Bradbury may get beat. Even Darrisaw may get beat, right? O'Neill's gotten beat. Ingram obviously has. He'll overset or something. But as a whole, what we are seeing now is the best we've seen in 10 years, literally. And you can't shake a stick at it. It's wonderful.
Yeah, I think everybody here would agree that we've been happy with the offensive line. Miles, as an overall offense, though, how do you feel like this unit is played through 6 weeks? Do you think that there's room to improve? Do you think that this is what we're going to see throughout the rest of the season?
Well, as a whole unit, I think there are some really good things that have been done. Obviously, like we've talked about, the O-line has improved. I think that's coaching. I think that's scheme. I think there's a few things that factor into that. I don't think Garrett Bradbury just became a really good center out of nowhere. I think there's a few factors that are helping him. But offense as a whole, I think the one thing we're missing is the explosive plays. And when you run an entire offense basically through Justin Jefferson, and when your offense doesn't. My issue with the offense is just like it was under Zimmer. It's the reverse. When Justin Jefferson isn't like making explosive plays and getting major opportunities, the offense is struggling as a whole. Just like when Dalvin Cook in the past or Adrian Peterson in the past, when those guys were struggling, the offense was struggling as a whole. And so we have to find ways to keep the ends running efficiently and effectively and making explosive plays outside of just Justin Jefferson. And so I'm not sure how they're going to do that. I think guys like Irv Smith, maybe we could find a little bit more opportunities for Irv because he's an explosive tight end. Maybe there's different ways to utilize a KJ Osborne. Maybe Jalen Reagor can get involved in a few more opportunities too. I just think hopefully as they go through the bye week, they reassess the offense because they're one of the lower teams or like mid-tier teams in explosive plays this season. And so when you have a guy like Justin Jefferson, explosive plays are such a big part of should be a big part of the offense. And so we need other guys outside of Jefferson to like, whether it's those guys step up or give those guys more opportunities. You can't live off of trying to run an entire offense through one person. That's not the quarterback effectively, right? Like you need it to be other guys having explosive plays to help loosen the defense and take some attention off of Jefferson. And right now, if you're a defense, why would you shift anything other than toward Jefferson? KJ Osborne's a good player. Adam Thielen's a good player. Those guys, both two things, they're not like the explosive type players that run downfield that way. Like Adam, they're chain movers. Exactly.
There's nothing wrong with that.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with Adam Thielen and KJ Osborne being possession receivers. And also that's also to me on O'Connell dialing up a little bit more opportunities for those guys to get downfield because they have the ability to do it. It's not that they can't do it. They have the ability to do it. So you just got to find. I think O'Connell's got to find some different ways to get those guys going because we know that they're good. And then the run game as a whole.
And I think you're right. Sorry, real quick. I think you're right. Like around just your one comment on Jalen Reagor. Like he's only had 5 opportunities that I can think of off the top of my head where he's gotten a look. I think it was a reverse and then like a couple screens and whatnot. And he makes he makes plays. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say
Yeah.
like they're big explosive plays, but he's making plays when given the opportunity. I just remember that one huge jump cut he made to get that first down. It's like, get him
And the
involved a
touchdown.
little bit more. I'm not sitting here saying he's the next wide receiver 2 for us, but just get him involved a little bit more and see if he can make a few more like big explosive plays.
Do you think Dalvin's 53-yard run will start him getting more explosive?
No.
he has shown glimpses of it though. Like the last 2 or 3 weeks, he's shown the Dalvin Cook of old, and I think we even talked about it a little bit last week. The
big reason Dalvin was able to do that, and Dalvin's still a good player. He's not a great player anymore, I don't think. Dalvin's the type of running back that needs the opportunities. He's the type of guy that as you get into the fourth quarter with a lead, he's going to catch some of those teams in those run blitzes and those opportunities, and he's going to take advantage of it. He still has that ability, as we saw against Miami. The Vikings were winning that game with 2 scores, so they're going to run the football. But for most of the season, the team has been in such close situations. Running the football to like end the game has not been something that have been done, and the offense is run through the pass game right now. And so Dalvin's in a completely different situation than what he's used to. And sorry, Matt, I didn't mean to cut you off, Matt, so I apologize for that.
You're good.
But yeah, I think just Dalvin's the type of guy that needs the opportunities to create those explosive plays. He's not like give him 10 carries and he might get you 80 yards. He's not that type of guy. He needs the 15, 20, 20 plus to like get himself going and get himself in a routine. Just like a receiver, some receivers, they need, opportunities early to get them moving and get them in a rhythm during, throughout the game.
I just really love that, we were in that group chat or whatever, and Dalvin's having not the most successful game early on in Miami, and everyone's just trashing him. And I said, Matt had said it's the first drive or the second drive, like take it easy. And I said, keep that same energy, because they're sitting here saying he's cooked. They're saying stop basically running the ball through him at all. And then, as soon as he hits that big explosive, big run, 50-yard run, whatever it was, where were they then? What were they saying at that point in time? They weren't saying he was cooked then.
Here's the thing about Dalvin Cook. I think when you watch him on the field this season, something seems different about him. And I think Luke alluded to it last week, pretty eloquently, that he's just learning a new offense, right? Like he's working through this new offense, much like the rest of the team is. But what I will say is when you go and look at the stats for Dalvin Cook this season, it's arguably the most consistent he's played for us in any season that he's been here. Because if you go back and look in some seasons early on, it's been 150-yard games. Next game, 30 yards, not doing much. And then it's, 160 and then it's nothing. Or it's 2 straight games and nothing. He's been consistently knocking on.
We're pissing Barbara off, though. That's for sure. Ah, damn.
He's been consistently knocking on the door of those 100-yard games outside of that Philly game. So while he may not look like the Dalvin of old, he's efficient, and I think he's a main part of the offensive success thus far. Now, you're right. We did piss off Barbara here when we said that Dalvin, or I guess Miles did, because Miles said that Dalvin's not a great player, just a good one. And I think it's hard to disagree with Miles's take right now. I mean, Dalvin
I'm not
is
even
an
trying
aging...
to. I'm not trying to be negative toward Dalvin. Dalvin's a good player. That's facts. But Dalvin isn't the elite top-ish running back that he was a couple of years ago. It's just true. But that's okay. It's also okay because that stuff.
We don't need him to be that right now.
Yeah, exactly. We don't need him to be that guy. And
they're
at
not
the same time,
they're not scheming him like
though.
Zimmer and the Kubiak system would, right?
That's
he was
perfect.
the focal point, and he got 20, 30, 35 carries a game. Now he's being pulled off for third downs, right? Because third down's a primary passing down generally. So he's not getting the touches he did in previous years. Now, you talked about enough plays called to them to get going, just like wide receivers to get in a rhythm. With running backs, I always call that working up a lather, right? That they've got to, physically get going. It sometimes takes time, but he is doing. Matt is right. He has been consistent. He's been running the 80, 90 a game mark, whereas in previous years we would see the 150 and then the 30 the next week. So it's not that he's not good. It's just I hope to see more of those plant the foot and break it and go like we saw in that 53-yarder. But it's not that he's being underutilized. I still think he's very, very good.
I did think someone was going to catch him on that run though. He looked a little slow towards
like
the end there.
Out of gas for sure. Yeah. So two things I want to mention both in the comments here. Number one, kind of a joke here, but like Barbara Jean, it just reminds me of that show Reba, and how that lady in that show is just spicy as hell. And this lady comes in, Barbara Jean here comes in, just ripping us apart, saying the Vikings are great, Adam Thielen's great, Dalvin Cook's great. You know what? We gotta love the fandom. Clap it up for the fandom there, right?
Yes.
And then another comment that came through, which I'm not seeing it in our actual comments anymore, but I saw pop up on the screen, was from Bo, who actually asked a question. And Matt, you're always the one asking questions, so I'm going to throw one your way.
Okay.
He had asked, who is the best team that we beat this year? Because there's been a lot of teams that we got to go against their backup quarterback, we got to go up against an injured team. Whether it's the Packers or the Lions, who got a lot of injuries against us. Who, in your opinion, has been the best win we've had?
I think this is a tough one because now I'm evaluating it off of 6 weeks of play, right? Like at first I thought the Packer game wasn't an impressive win because they were supposed to be good, right? And I'm not saying they're going to be bad, but they certainly aren't where we expected them to be at this point. So I don't find that win as impressive anymore.
But it was still
just a quick thing too is that they are only a 3-point favorite against the Commanders this week.
I know
that's not looking good for them in their outlook. If
the Packers suck.
I think if I had to pick, and this is going to be a little strange, but I think I'd probably go with New Orleans, just given how good their defense is. And they still have a lot of, weapons at their disposal.
But
it's tough though because
avoid Kamara and Thomas in that game.
I know, and that's the tough part because we've avoided a lot of key players. So if we're gonna go by pure,
how much better do you think Tua is than Teddy?
I think he's a lot better.
A lot better.
Yeah,
Miles?
I think at this stage, Tua's a lot better, and not even just because I think he's better. He was playing really well. Like Tua was playing really well to start the season. So like if he had been playing to start the year, maybe I'd be thinking differently. But he was playing really well before the injuries. So I think if we had seen Tua, you might have seen a different game. But that's okay. Like again, we're not giving the wins back. We won. Like,
right.
We're 5-1. Like this is the first time we've been able to be like excited about this team in a few years. Like it's great.
And into the bye week.
Yes. Right. And heading into of course there are things that I'm worried about because as I'm a Vikings fan, like we're all Vikings fans. So like of course we're waiting for the shoe to drop and we're waiting for the shit to hit the fan, but like I'm still going to ride the wave because that's what I do. But I think for me the most impressive win, because Tua was out, for me it was the Lions. Just because I know the Lions have struggled this year. I do think as a whole team they have a good roster. And so I think the Vikings were able to come back and win that game because the Lions they gave it back to us, but we also took it and won that game. And so I think as like a whole, that was probably to me the most impressive win. I think because I think their offense was playing really well at the time. They had Swift, they had Amon-Ra St. Brown, who I know got hurt during the game, but TJ Hawkinson, like they had good players. And so I think as a whole, I think the team was able to overcome a few things in that game and find a way to win when they probably shouldn't have. And so I think to me that was probably the most impressive win. And then yes, Green Bay, just because it's Green Bay, because we going into that game, would any of us been surprised if Green Bay had beat us? I don't think anybody would have been surprised if Green Bay had beat us heading into that game. So to win that game just as a whole, and we hate Green Bay, fuck Green Bay, like to be able to win that game week one and then just see them struggle now, it's school.
Yeah. Let's shift gears quick and talk about the defense here and how they've done during the 6 weeks here. When we talk about some of our victories, right, it's the bend, don't break mentality that the defense kind of has. There's certainly been moments where they have allowed some pretty dumb plays, big plays early in the season, which hasn't happened as of late. But we think about the long touchdown in the Eagles game, the one that should have been caught by Watson in the Packer game. But when it matters most, this defense, for the most part, has stood their ground and delivered, decent performances. So, what is your overall feel for the defense through 6 weeks? And then what can they even improve upon?
Yeah, I think they really have an opportunity to continue to build on what they've been doing, which is learning this defense and very, very different defense. It's been very disappointing to see the pass rushing production. You think it'd be a little better than it was, than what it has been, specifically out of Hunter, where we're used to seeing him just own opposing offensive lines. Zadarius Smith has been a godsend. I mean, he provides that fire, that spark to this defense and that pass rush that we need. And hopefully that's going to turn into more production down the road as we continue to build out and learn this defense. The secondary is obviously struggling a bit, young secondary, so we're still getting into the ingraining this new system into them. But you're seeing signs of life. You're seeing signs of them continuing to improve. We're also getting healthier. We're bringing Andrew Booth back in to the fold here. We're bringing some of these younger guys like Asamoah on the field a little bit more. And you're going to see as we continue to develop and have these guys continue to grow, I think we're going to see more cohesion. I think we're going to see a little less of those, like Luke was talking about last week, those massive miscommunication errors that turn into big plays, right? You still saw them. You still saw them last week against Tyreek and against Jalen Waddle. But you're also seeing them, mitigate that by making a play, making the tackle, causing the fumble that seals the game, right? Like we're doing these things, and I think they're starting to gain a little bit more confidence. They're starting to blitz a little bit more. And like I said, once you get Asamoah on the field more, you're going to see more production, I think. So
you just had to give the little plug to Asamoah.
Hey, he's killing it for me in Madden.
Well, we need him to kill it in real life, Ryan.
He'll get there. I like the approach they're taking with Asamoah. I kind of feel like that's what Lewis Cine was going to get the opportunity to do too. Obviously, the injuries and things, not just the bad injury that happened in London, but like leading up to it, he was injured. I think we would have seen some of that from Lewis Cine too. So,
yep.
Yeah.
Any takes from you on the Vikings defense, Miles, as a whole?
Mm-hmm.
Any spots that they can improve upon?
Everywhere. I don't think the defense is like very good, but I've said this. My expectations for the defense have not been high because they weren't good under Mike Zimmer the last couple of years, and they brought back 75, 85% of that roster. So I can't sit here and they have a new scheme now. I can't sit here and pretend like my expectations should overtly change because I think Zimmer's a better defensive coach than Donatel, and that's nothing against Donatel, but it's true. Like, if Mike Zimmer's still one of the better defensive minds in football, and so like for me to pretend like I think the defense was supposed to be really good, that's just not true. So the defense is kind of doing what I expect. I think yes, they've caught some lucky breaks, like you'd rather be lucky than sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, but I'm hoping they can get things right enough to overcome some of that luck that they had in the first half, the first 6 games, because you hope that they can play better to offset some of the need for some of those lucky plays. But I think a couple of things I want to see a little bit better is like just more overall pressures. You can't just rely on Zadarius Smith to basically be the guy that gets all your pressures. We need a little bit more from the front, the interior guys, and obviously Danielle Hunter. I'm hoping Danielle Hunter can get back to Danielle. I know it's a different defense for him, so I think he's probably just out there thinking a little bit more than he's used to, and having to do a little bit more than he's used to. So it's a big change for him. It's not a change for Zadarius Smith. So I think that's why the transition for him is a lot easier that first 6 games. But And then the linebackers have been fine, I think. I mean, I don't think there's any like glaring issues with the linebackers. They are what they are.
Yeah.
The DBs, hit or miss. I'm hoping with Andrew Booth back, and hopefully as he gets a little bit more healthy, maybe we see a little bit more of Andrew Booth. I'm hoping we see a little bit more of Andrew Booth, and he can stay healthy and progress and grow and develop. Because he's a guy that not even just this year, but long term, you want to see become a good player opposite Cam Dantzler and playing with Cam Dantzler and those things. So really excited about Cam Dantzler though. Now I mentioned him. He's a guy that's played well. He started a little rocky to start the season, but I think there's we know that there's skill there, and I think he's starting to put it together. And hearing him say that he works with Patrick Peterson during the week to do like film review and stuff like that, I think that's just such a really smart move to go to a guy that's been around the block for so long and Pat Pete and just learn from him and try to help slow the game down for you. And I think we've seen that out of his play and some of the things he's been able to do. And Patrick Peterson, I think another guy, I think he's been – I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, my God, Patrick Peterson of old. He's not, but he's been good. Like for $4 million, you're getting exactly what – I think you're getting a little bit more than what you'd even hoped for. I think he's playing pretty decent. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I think that's sustainable throughout the whole season against some of the competition they have coming up. But I think in this defense, I think he's doing pretty well. And to see him, have an interception and those things is good and help lead that defense. And so, yeah, as a whole, as a unit, I think the defense obviously can improve. And hopefully, again, like I said, I hope some of the lucky plays that they've had can be replaced by like better technique and better skill as the season goes on.
Yeah, I think the thing that concerns me, and one thing on Patrick Peterson, currently through 6 games, his passer rating against is 55.7. So, he must be doing something right. But I think the thing for me, as we come out of this bye week, that's going to be a real test for this defense is just the quarterbacks we're about to face. So we're coming off games where we played Jared Goff, Justin Fields, Andy Dalton, Teddy, and Tua. And now we're going to go face, outside of the Commanders game with Taylor Heineke, you're getting Kyler Murray, you're getting Josh Allen, you're getting Dak Prescott. After that, it's, kind of back to the status quo. It's, it's the Patriots and Jets and whatnot. But there's 3 games for sure coming up where this defense hasn't played against a quarterback like that since the Eagles and Jalen Hurts. And we saw what happened there.
Rodgers too, Matt. Like we don't know. I would assume by January 1st, Rodgers is you would assume playing better than he's been, and you
right. Yeah, I was just looking short term, but yeah,
I think so too. But
he's got his mind on those psychedelics and that retirement. He's done. What I will say though is that Kyler obviously is a good quarterback, but that defense is not nearly what it's going to be when we need to play the Cowboys and the Bills. So Cowboys and Bills, that's going to be litmus tests to say, hey, are we competitors in the playoffs? Can we go and beat a really good defense with a good quarterback on the other side of the field?
I'm going to interrupt for a second. I don't even need them to beat those teams.
Right,
I just want it. Can we stay close enough in those games? Because I just don't want to see what happened in Philly, which is the game was gone before we even had a chance.
I think that the two biggest games there are obviously the Bills and the Cowboys for me, just because I don't think the Cowboys are like a great team, but that defense is legit. Like that defense is arguably the best defense in the league right now, and so I'm really curious to see how Connell and the team can play against that defense with Kirk and JJ and how that happens. And then obviously the Bills just as an all around team, that's just one of those teams like the Eagles. There aren't many teams as like complete. The Eagles and the Bills are probably maybe the Chiefs. Probably the top teams in the league that are like as complete as those teams. So how do you like to your guys' point? How do you fare against those? Like the Vikings are a really good team right now. How do you fare against the elite teams? Because we know that those teams are elite.
I mean, we're looking at a Bills team that's likely has a very, very good opportunity to go to the Super Bowl. Like if
for sure.
health and stuff stays current, they have a chance to go to the Super Bowl.
I agree, Barbara.
Have a chance to go to the Super Bowl. So we already showed that like the Eagles kind of bit our heads off a bit, but I think that like we also just didn't show up that game. So I think we're better than what that Eagles game was, and I
Oh, for
think we'll
sure.
put up a bigger fight against them later if we were to play them again. But for the Bills, like if we do somehow make it to the Super Bowl, can we not get embarrassed and go 0-5, right? Like in the Bills game will allow us to say,
Oh, dude,
we
it's
can
way
make
too early for
we
me to even think about that.
I'm not saying that we're even have a chance to go to the Super Bowl. I'm just saying if we happen to get there, like that Bills game is going to determine if like we get destroyed by the Chiefs or the Bills, because in my mind those are the two top teams.
Yes, we're going to see the Vikings, the 0-4 Vikings, fight the 0-4 Bills in the championship. Sure.
Playoffs are a crazy thing. You never know when it gets to
Never know.
January and February what's going to go on. Let's touch on special teams quick, and then we'll do like a 4-game snapshot to round it out here. So, how do you guys think? How are you feeling about the special teams this season? I know it's kind of been up and down in Zimmer's tenure, mainly with field goal kicking, but also just coverage wise. But they have a new special teams coordinator. I think
Future head
some
coach.
really, yeah, for
I
sure.
agree with you, Miles.
I think some really special players on the special teams. When you think about Chris Boyd, he may not be a solid cornerback, but I think that he's a very good special teams player and a gunner. I mean, he made a huge play in that Miami game, forcing that muffed punt, essentially. Even Brian Asamoah on special teams has been, I mean, he just flies down the field on kickoffs and punt returns, and is really making himself feel or impact the game. On the flip side of that, you have Ryan Wright, who is this
Mr. Right to you.
Chunky former quarterback who just boots the shit out of the ball.
He just makes me smile, man. Like I can't even take him so seriously, but he's good. Like he's really good. But I literally watched
except
the game
for that shank
he
had, that 20-yard shank he had a couple weeks ago. But
hey, he's a rookie. He can make one mistake.
I mean, you don't notice it in the game as much, but when you are backed up in your own, end zone, and your punter rips off a 75-yard punt to really flip the field, like that's it doesn't seem big, but it's huge for the team, right? It's a whole mindset change. It's now we don't have to just protect our part of the field. We have, some yards to work with here.
Well, it's plays like that, Matt, where I think people forget how important special teams is, right? Like I think sometimes we overlook special teams because it's obviously like a phase of football, but it's not the most important phases. It's not glamorous, right? So besides like a cool kick return for kick and punt return, like the kickoff and punt teams aren't glamorous because you're just like you're giving the ball to the other team, but like you said, when you can flip the field like that, that impacts winning. That's not that like that's the part people forget. That impacts winning football games. And for the last couple of years, I'm not going to say under Zim, but more so under like the old special teams coordinators that they just didn't have this type of ability. Not just Ryan Wright himself, but like the special teams units as a whole just didn't have the like abilities that they have now under Matt Daniels, and so I think Ryan Wright's obviously the bright spot, but like to your point, Matt, the other units are doing really well, and you could tell that the true attention to the entire unit, but also including guys from like whether they're starters or like deep backup players as part of those special teams units to keep them involved in the game. Because the one thing you want to make sure you do is get your best players on the field. And yes, you're not going to put Justin Jefferson on punt or kickoff or any of those things, but like guys that are like maybe a KJ Osborne, maybe a Jalen Reagor, maybe some of these like even a Chris Boyd, like Patrick Peterson, like Harrison Smith, like CJ Ham, like those guys are good football players. So when you put them on special team units as well, they're going to do well, and that just helps the unit as a whole. And Brian Asamoah, obviously, like you could tell, like he's a guy that just really wants it. Brian, I know Ryan's like over here with a hard on, but like But like guys like that are super important because you need to want it. Like, yes, we have higher hopes for him in terms of like being a linebacker, but like guys like him that want to be really good at special teams, that's so important to the entire piece of that puzzle.
And,
Yeah.
and and again, and having them be effective on that special teams unit, and then when they're called into action, whether it is Osmo, whether it's a Caleb Evans, a couple weeks back when Dantzler got hurt, right? Like they're warmed up, they're ready to go, right? So it's and I wanted to bring up one point quick on the special teams, and then you guys can take it wherever you want, but just like the offensive line, right? This is a unit where outside of praising them, this isn't a unit that we're complaining about anymore. And it's a breath of fresh air. Like nobody wants to complain about special teams because it's a unit that's boring to talk about. But when they're playing well, you don't have to do that. And if anything, you're praising them. And Matt Daniels, I mean, that's the culture. That's the culture. And you guys said it earlier. You're likely looking at a future head coach. And that's exciting to see.
Yeah. Well, another thing about the special teams is we lead the league in field position because of it. Both where we start and where our opponents start. And it's all because of the special teams and where they put it, whether it's kick team, punt team, coverage teams on both sides. The only team that's shy a little bit and had some problems is punt coverage. But for the most part, we have put the opponent further back than anybody else in the league. And we have started closer than anybody else in the league, and that is because of special teams. By the way, Mr. Wright won NFC Special Teams Player of the Week this week. Well deserved for him.
As he should.
10 punts, that beautiful 73-yard, I think it was 73-yard bomb, and 7 of those 10 inside the 20, right? So, and still had a 40-plus yard average. That's... Yep. He's doing fantastic.
Yes, yeah. Barbara Jean, we are excited that you found us. Thank you for tuning in, and hopefully you keep joining us each and every week.
Yes. And we are here on Facebook as well as YouTube. And I see you watching on Facebook, Barbara.
Well, you guys kind of did the plug there. If you're listening right now or on the podcast the next day, you can head on over to our YouTube channel and click the like and subscribe button to see us go live every single week at 8 p.m. Or you can find us on any of your podcasts that you like under Daily Norseman. That's all I have. I mean, I think there's a lot to be excited about for this football team. 5-1, 3-0 in the division, 2-game lead in the division. And I think the last I checked was the 12th easiest schedule the rest of the way. I think the first 4 games coming out of the bye week are going to be a big test and a big point to see who this team really is as we get closer and closer to the playoffs. But I'm confident this team will be in the playoffs, barring some crazy injury. And to Ryan's point, it's nice to talk about new issues with this team because the old ones seem to, I don't want to say have gone away, but have lessened this season. So any other thoughts from you two for a bye week check-in? Otherwise, we'll pick this thing right back up next week. All right. Well, we had the sponsor, That Badass Wood Art, at the beginning of the show, and it's I'd be remiss if I didn't mention our other sponsor, Lake Monster Brewing in St. Paul, Minnesota. I'm drinking tonight a depth charge. I got a lot of beer,
awesome,
Ryan, and
IPA.
So when I come down there next week, I'll drop some off. But make sure you head on over to Lake Monster, pick up some beer, and if you're in the Twin Cities, they got Halloween festivities. They have a Monster Bash coming up. It'll be a very, very fun time. So
on the 29th, get your tickets, $9. Music, it starts at noon. Live music from 1 to 11 p.m. at night. Great beer. They have some specials coming up in their cask cave that not even I've found out about. I just know that Matt's brewing them, and they should be fantastic. They're also doing a fundraiser for a local school this weekend. So by all means, go down with some great food, great people, great times. Can't beat it with a steak. Best beer in Minnesota.
Let's go.
Now we need the Wolves to pick it up.
I know. Dave, hit us with what's coming, and then you can close it.
Oh, what we got coming this weekend is me and Darren on Saturday, the two old bloggers. We are going to look at what the Vikings have done, what our expectations were, how they've met them or not met them so far in these first 6 games, and what we might look forward to as we hit that 11-game marathon down the stretch. The time now is to thrive instead of just survive, and hopefully the Vikings do that. That'll be at 4 o'clock on Saturday, 4 Central. Come join us as we have fun looking at this year's Vikings as of 6 weeks.
Let's go Bear. Skol Vikes.
Skol Vikes.
Miles.
Okay, Rudy.
He's good.
All right, bye, guys. Bye.
Skol Vikings. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell, and feel free to rate us on your favorite aggregator. A big shout out goes to our partners, The Daily Norseman, where the best Vikings content can be found. To That's Badass Wood Art, when you're looking for something unique to brighten your space. And to Lake Monster Brewing, home of the best beer in Minnesota. Skol, everybody!